Welcome, everyone, to this evening's Chevy Chase Joint Municipal Meeting regarding the upcoming boundary study for Montgomery County Public Schools. Our speaker tonight is Julie Yang, President of the MCPS Board of Education. My name is Lou Morsberger. I'll be your moderator tonight. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board of Managers of Chevy Chase Village. Let me at least mention the towns that are co-hosting us tonight. There's the Village of Chevy Chase, the Town of Chevy Chase Section 3 and Section 5, the Village of Martin's Additions, the Town of Somerset, and the Village of Drummond. Special thanks to the Town of Chevy Chase and Montgomery Municipal Cable for providing technical support for tonight's virtual meeting and live stream. Joining us tonight is Julie Yang, President of the Board of Education of Montgomery County Public Schools. President Yang was elected to the Board of Education in 2022, representing Board District 3, which includes most of Bethesda and Chevy Chase. In December of 2024, she was elected by her fellow board members to serve a one-year term as president. On her way to becoming board president, she has worked in various educational roles, including as a classroom teacher, school instructional data analyst, and college and career counselor over a span of more than 20 years. It's worth noting that President Yang announced earlier today that she is a candidate for the Montgomery County Council, for the seat being vacated by Councilman Andrew Friedson, who has announced his candidacy for county executive. These elections will take place in the spring and fall of 2026. We were to be joined tonight by Dr. Thomas Taylor, Superintendent of Montgomery County Schools, but Dr. Taylor sent word a few hours ago that he's under the weather, and he regrets that he's unable to join us. As many of you likely know already, Dr. Taylor was appointed superintendent a year ago, having served most recently as the superintendent of the Stafford County, Virginia Public Schools. Dr. Taylor grew up in Chevy Chase Village and is an alumnus of MCPS himself. We hope he's feeling better soon. In the meanwhile, we're pleased that both President Yang and Dr. Taylor bring to their roles a deep familiarity with the Chevy Chase area. Tonight's meeting was called to ensure that residents of our communities understand the boundary study process that is underway as MCPS prepares for the opening in the 2027-28 school year of Charles W. Woodward High School on Old Georgetown Road in Rockville. MCPS and its consultants are at an early stage in developing new school boundaries. Tonight, President Yang will help us understand the boundary development process, including how residents can share their views on different boundary options and on how final recommendations will be adopted and implemented. You can find a link to the boundary study website in the chat, and that website includes a further link for area residents to complete a survey and submit feedback on the initial boundary options. Residents should submit their survey responses by July 15th. While President Yang might provide insights into other issues at play in the school district, tonight is not the right forum to ask about personnel or individual student issues. We'd encourage attendees to contact President Yang and Dr. Taylor's offices directly with those types of questions. We will conclude tonight by 9 o'clock. And if there is sufficient time after we've addressed the boundary issue, President Yang has offered to provide general updates regarding MCPS and school board activities as they look ahead to the 2025-26 school year. A few ground rules for tonight's meeting. All participants have been placed on mute. In a moment, I will turn the conversation over to President Yang for her opening remarks, after which we will open the floor for questions. Still, we would like for this session to be considered off the record for press and media. In spite of her announcement earlier today, we'd like to keep this a community meeting as much as possible. To ask a question, you may address it via a chat message to Shayna Davis Cook, our Chevy Chase Village Manager, and she'll raise the question for us in the order received. If you'd like to ask your question live, rather than through the chat, raise your hand in the Zoom reactions, and we'll also do our best to call on you in order. And you can use the chat to address a question to Shayna. You can also, I think, if you hover over her video, you'll see 3 dots that also will give you a chat option. So hopefully we've given you a couple of ways to make sure that your question is registered. So that we have a productive discussion tonight, we, of course, request that you ask questions rather than pass judgment. And of course, be respectful, disagree with ideas, not with people. With that, let me turn the floor over to MCPS School Board President Julie Yang. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I'm really happy to be here with all of you tonight. And I really appreciate the towns get together for reaching out and pulling this together. And so thank you for making this gathering happen. So I see, as I was scrolling some names, I see some familiar names in the room, and for many others, this may be the first time we are meeting. So I'm especially glad to have this chance to connect. Now, I always value opportunities to hear directly from our community. Just a few days ago, over the long weekend, I joined a 4th of July celebration in Chevy Chase Section 5 and the town of Somerset. It's moments like those and this evening that remind me how much people care about our schools and our children and our shared future, right? I did invite Dr. Taylor. When Shana reached out, I immediately say, you know what, let's get Dr. Taylor to come too. And he was set to come, but unfortunately fell ill. So here is how I'm going to structure my time with you. So I will start with a short introduction and a bit about a short introduction of myself and share a bit about the board's perspective on the boundary study process and the principles we are using to guide it and evaluate it. And then we'll open up for questions and conversations. So a bit about myself. My husband, Wen, and I moved to Montgomery County 21 years ago. So like many of you, because of the schools, the parks, and most of all, the people. We, at the time, have 2 very young children, and now they are all adults. As someone who came to this country from China, where at the time, many girls didn't even get the chance to finish elementary school around me. Education became my path to opportunity and freedom. So that's why I'm so proud now and I also have dedicated my life to helping others access the same opportunity. So in terms of the board work, when I think about what matters most to families, what keeps people up at night is not abstract policy. It's the everyday realities in our buildings, right? Is the bus showing up on time, right? Are our school clean and comfortable, right? Is it warm in the winter, cool in the summer, right? Do teachers feel supported and ready, or do our kids feel safe, seen, and are they learning? So these are my lens of viewing my board work. Policy that we make, the oversight that we do, need to help make these things better to improve the student experience, their physical experience in the building and their learning experience in the building. And so that is the same kind of lens, the bread and butter concerns that I use it to look at this boundary study and this boundary conversations too. So jumping right into boundary study, where are we in this boundary study? So boundary study have several steps. Right now, we're still in the early stages. The options currently being discussed come from the consultant and the work group. Now, in September, we will see a second round of options after gathering the community feedback. And then in December, the superintendent will make a recommendation to the board, and the board will begin our deliberations in January, which will include another round of public engagement before we make any final decision in the spring. Okay, so some guiding principles from the board. the board has set very clear expectations for the process. We want the process, number one, to be transparent and accessible. So help families understand the potential changes through tools like interactive maps, which is on our website. You type in your address, you will know with each proposal, how is your family being impacted. Then we also suggest the public office hours, which the school system adopted, so that people can come and talk to a real person about their concerns and feedback. Second thing, that we want to ensure the community's feedback is heard and incorporated. So that means that the survey that you filled out, the emails that you sent to me, even the email you sent to me, individual emails you sent to me, I have not only the board staff is tracking it, I also forward it to the MCPS staff to track it. And when the next set of options come out, I would like to see if these feedbacks, have been incorporated, or if not, why not? So that is an important step for us. And then the board also said that we need to treat this process with fairness and respect to the families. So these are some guiding principles. So some of my own thinking, this is me speaking as Julie. So we are still getting ongoing input and data. One thing, I believe in continuous boundaries that make sense for family and the system, right? So we need to open the new Woodward High School to relieve overcrowding at Walter Johnson. Walter Johnson was built for 1,700 students, now have over 3,000 students. So because I believe in the adjustment in the adjacent boundaries, right now I have a big concern about options 3, which creates island zones and longer bus rides for students. And then also, we should avoid unnecessary disruptions when neighborhood schools are available nearby. So that's my current thinking. And there are some things I'm still evaluating. For example, I'm still reviewing proposal and special program placement. Last week, I think, actually all my colleagues are too. Last board meeting, there were proposals about program designs, but I'm waiting for clear data on outcomes, analysis of student demand, transportation impact, and physical cost. So without these 4 things, it's very difficult without these 4 things. So I'm open to possibilities, but our decision must be grounded in strong data. And that's how I viewed it. Now, I understand that boundaries changes impact our students, all grades. And especially we're doing secondary level we are impacting middle and high school students. And these are the young people who have already experienced a lot, right? They did remote learning during the pandemic, and they have to go through social emotional readjustments afterwards. So we must prioritize their well-being and not just logistical and data points. They are not just logistical or data points. So we understand that we need to be cautious, and I believe we need to be cautious with split articulations patterns, because although at times unavoidable, we must understand they impact friendship and continuity, right? So some final thoughts before I open up to all questions. Boundary studies are never easy. They're complex. They're very emotional. We know not everyone will agree with the final outcome, but we can ensure that the process is fair, that every voice is respected, and that we are being physically responsible with our taxpayers' money, right? So I really thank you for taking the time to be here tonight, and I look forward to the conversation. I don't want to dominate it with slides or presentations. I think many of you probably have gone to some presentations, and I wanted to be able to address your concerns and questions and hear, most of all, hear your suggestions, your input, because we live in a community that I believe you know your community the best, and you know a lot of things that can help us problem solve. And when we put our heads together, we can have better solutions for the work we are engaging in. So I will turn the mic back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Yang. Appreciating those remarks and that overview. Folks hopefully have already been submitting some questions. Just as a reminder, you've got the option of submitting them via chat to Shana Davis Cook, or look for Shana's video, and there should be a 3-dot menu option next to her video that also allows you to submit questions to her. And if you'd rather ask your question live, just go into the chat reactions, the Zoom reactions at the bottom of your screen probably, and you can raise your hand, and Shana will help try to keep folks largely in order. I'd also like to mention that Warren Hansen, legislative aide to Councilman Andrew Friedson, is present tonight. So folks asking questions can also be confident that their concerns are also registering with Councilman Friedson's office as well. With that, let me turn it over to Shana to see what questions we've got coming in.
Sounds good. Good evening, everyone. I'll first turn it over to our first hand raise, Juliana Horowitz.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Yang, so much for being here. I have a rising 8th grader at Silver Creek Middle School and a rising 11th grader at BCC. I'm the BCC cluster rep for Silver Creek, and I'm also heading up the Boundary Study Committee at Silver Creek. So I really appreciate you being here. Our committee sent an email this morning to MCPS and copied you and all your fellow board members with our position. And I do have 2 questions for you, though. One is that at the June 24th board meeting, Dr. Taylor said that the academic studies, the academic program study will inform the boundary study, but the timing of these 2 studies are happening in parallel. And so I was just wondering how you see this comment from Dr. Taylor, because the community is providing input right now and we're providing input through the fall. And even when he sends his recommendations in December at the board meeting, they said the academic studies, the academic program study will be concluded in January. And so everybody's making decisions without knowing where these academic programs will be. And so I'm just wondering how you see that timeline. Would MCPS ever slow down the boundary study to wait for the academic program study recommendations? So that's one of my questions. And then, and just to add my second question really quickly, is that I attended one of the MCPS office hours, and I asked about sort of the complexity of every option. I know option 3 is the most disruptive, but every option really sends people, lots of split articulation on all of the options. And so I asked them about it, and they said the directive from the board was for the program, the boundary study, to be broad in scope. And I'm wondering and then I asked her if that meant that all of those schools could be considered as, to populate Woodward, or whether that meant every school would be scrambled. She said that was a question for the board. And so I'm wondering, when the board wanted this to be broad in scope, did you mean more that any of those schools could be considered as options, or were you really thinking that they would basically throw all the schools in the mix, scramble all the students, send people to multiple schools? I'm just wondering what your perspective is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. And you have an 8th grader and 11th grader. It looks like your family have transition years coming up. The first question is about the academic program design timeline and how that work with the boundary study. So I think I understand the school system's perspective that they do need to evaluate the programs because that might impact the building utilization. You know, how many seats to reserve so that you know that how many students are going to be in the building. Okay, so I understand that. However, if you watch the meeting, you hear me ask that without knowing the transportation impact, without knowing the fiscal impact, without knowing actually whether these programs work. Is there a demand or is there a good outcome from those programs? It's really like putting the car before the horse, right? So one of the things we are asking, I do think that these data can be available. They don't have to be very complicated to come up with, because if you have a design, you basically need to look at transportation. You need to look at the demand and outcome. So I do believe, I hope by August or sometime before the September option come out, we have a clearer idea of what we are doing with the programs. That way, the second round of options take into considerations take that into consideration, then it will impact the number of the students we need to move from current schools. So I do feel we still have a chance to meet the timeline that is right now set up. But I also said, if you have read the board's communication that come out, we won't rush it. We want to do this right. We know it impact students' life. It impact our system's operation. We want to do it right. Second question, I'm trying to understand the second question. So both of these two studies Woodward Akron have a lot of high school involved. I think about 19 high schools are involved in the boundary study. When we say broad in scope, is we take this as an opportunities to address the building utilization. Really is because our county development is not, and neighborhood turnover are not at an even pace all across the county. So that schools in different parts of county, they are not even connected to each other, have overcrowdedness or underutilization. So being able to adjust adjacent boundaries, in my view, this is the opportunity to relieve some of those building utilization pressures, but also it's being responsible for taxpayers' money. It costs about $215 to $230 million to build a high school, and $115 to build $30 to build a middle school. And so it's a big financial responsibility. So by doing these adjacent adjustments, we can use our taxpayers' money responsibly.
Thank you, President Yang. I will read off our next question, which was posed by Jonathan Siegel. Question is, the option in the boundary study that is the most troubling to me is option 3. My family lives about a mile from Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, but under option 3, my child would go to Blair High School, which is more than 6 miles away. What good purpose is served by this option?
Good question. Good question. If you are a mile from BCC, you are in the walk zone of BCC. And if there is no major highway or your kid can walk to school, and that is the walk zone. For our transportation, high school is 2 miles, is the walk zone. Middle school is 1.5 miles, and elementary school is 1 mile. So you asked a very good question, and I certainly am not inclined to favor options that put our kids on bus for unnecessary length of time and increase the traffic and the environmental impact and the cost of transportation in the school system.
Great, thank you. Reading the next question posted to the chat, did each of the this was posted by Dwayne. Did each of the options optimize for individual things like equity, in parentheses, option 3? I'm interested in the options, I believe it's throughout the process. Oh, excuse me. I'm interested in the options thought process.
I think when these options were presented to me, none of them had a label on them. Okay, full transparency. However, we have many community members using data, using their knowledge. They say, hey, clearly we can tell because there are in our policy, there are 4 factors to be considered for boundary study. They can tell clearly certain factors is weighed heavily for certain options. So I totally get that. I totally get that, even though that wasn't presented the way to me. I totally get that. So I think, as I said, this is the first stage, and I think they explore the options and for us to talk. And I think it gave us an opportunity to say, hey, what if we consider this, what would this look like? If we consider this, what I think is a good conversation to be had. And we are still in the early stage of it. So it has a lot of chance for feedback and adjustment, I believe, going on and continue on moving forward.
Great, thank you. I will read another question from the chat and then we will call on our next raised hand. Following the guidance in our ground rules that were established by Mr. Morseberg at the beginning of this meeting, I'm only going to read the portions of this question that are about the data and not about the individuals involved in the process. How satisfied are you with the consultants? Have you considered MIT City Labs, which Tyson's Corner uses? For example, there is a plan to prevent Chevy Chase students from going to BCC.
So my understanding of the question is how satisfied I'm with the consulting firm.
Yes. And if you've considered another company, specifically MIT City Labs, which was used in or by Tyson's Corner.
Yeah. So I can't speak for the whole board. We haven't had that discussion or evaluation, and this is an ongoing process. We have not considered MIT City Lab because when this RFP was put out to be bid, we did not have MIT City Lab wasn't a bidder for the contract. So I don't have any information on that. I personally don't have direct interaction with the consulting firm. So far, from what I observe, that they have delivered the map according to schedule. The system did have to adjust that they the system was not satisfied with the subcontractor for community engagement, and we adjusted having the MCPS conduct the community engagement.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Lyric Winnick, who has her hand raised.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Shayna. Thank you, Julie, for being here. And I'm done with MCPS as a
Hi, Larry. You and me don't have kids in the school system anymore.
but I spent a lot of time working on it. And I'm going to frame this by saying that I was on the original Silver Creek Boundary Study Committee and also the very first Reimagining Woodward Woodward Vision Committee, or whatever they called it years ago for MCPS. So I'm sort of familiar institutionally with both of these things. And I do want to echo the concerns of the previous question about the skill and facility of the consultants, because not just for our area, but across these options that are being offered, the assumption, and I went to one of the presentations, and really the underlying assumption that they present is that it is easier to move east-west or west-east in this county as opposed to north-south. And that is something that at the time of Silver Creek was heavily disputed by the MCPS Transportation Department, among others. And they said, no, that's impossible. And I think most of us who travel that way know that as well. So, you know, I understand that this is the first iteration, but I'm confused about why some of this was allowed through, and not just for moving, you know, most of Chevy Chase to Blair under option 3, but it would have also taken Summit Hills and bused them to Whitman. And, you know, there are many families where they don't have transportation. They rely on public transportation. There's no planning for MCPS to offer any kind of after-school transportation options. That means kids can't participate in sports, in theater, in music, in clubs, and a whole variety of things in middle school and high school. And my underlying question is, A, will you push back harder to actually have better options created? And B, the other thing that really concerns me is the data in the school profiles are way out of date. I mean, it has BCC, for example, at 23% farms, and BCC is right under 30%, and maybe this fall will be at 30%. So it's also operating off of faulty data, and there's no reason the consultants couldn't have access to the data. So is there going to be anything where, you know, people are really going to heavily go back to the drawing board on this, or are we kind of stuck with these proposals?
Good question, Larry. You know, my family, I have 2 children. One is 24, one is 21. They all went through MCPS. We have been in different cluster, Walter Johnson, Churchill, and my daughter did special program too. And when and I work in the Magruder cluster, and then and then we were in the DCC cluster. So I have seen a lot of cluster, and I actually have to drive quite far to go over the county, you know, like to all this like you, I did all the PTA things. Starting with they get you as a room mom, and then pretty soon you have to run a special geography bowl night, international night, and then that's how you get involved. And then pretty soon you say, oh, okay, let me just run for the Board of Education, so because they need to know what's happening in the buildings. Okay, going back to thank you for your feedback about the consultant and how you questioned the transportation data. I have noted that down. One of the things that you asked is really worth considering is about the activity bus. MCPS typically only provides activity bus for twice a week, right? Typically, not every single day. And so if students live really far and there is no public transportation available, that might really create a barrier for fully participate in the school life. And that will hinder the building of a community or a sense of belonging for those students. So thank you for that point. I have noted it. In terms of the data use, so I do notice that online our data is school profile is 23 to 24 school year data. And for the boundary study, I think the question I will ask is, are they based on the 24, 25 data? We surely have it now. If we didn't have it earlier, we surely have it, we should have it now so that, because we just concluded the year, we should really use the 24, 25 year. Actually, projection for the 25, 26 year is already out. We have the new CIP book is out. So that might be, this is another question I noted down for the September option, which year's data are they going to use to do that analysis? So thank you for those feedback.
Thank you. I'll read the next question that has been posted in the chat from Dana Parrots, and I apologize if I mispronounce the last name. Is there any transition option being considered for children who would be changing schools in 7th grade? This feels like a lot of disruption for the same children who had to Zoom into kindergarten and are still dealing with the issues from this, as you mentioned earlier. Could they simply move in 6th grade? Could they simply move in 6th grade?
So if I understand this question correctly, it's saying that we only move 6th graders, don't move 7 and grandfather in 7th and 8th grader. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, it starts off with, is there any transition option being considered for children who would be changing schools in 7th grade? So could they simply move in 6th grade?
Right. So I think I did understand it correctly. So currently the thinking is 11th and 12th grade students stay put and 8th grade student stay put. So that is the current thinking. And also another thing about stability, I understand I asked that when they draw up the plans to consider which neighborhoods have gone through boundary studies in recent years, right? And then so that we don't keep moving the same group of kids again and then a second time around. So that is one thing I have provided feedback.
Thank you. Going to the next question posted in the chat. Why aren't elementary schools in focus? The Rosemary/Chevy Chase elementary school split is hard, and it feels like the board is okay with splitting kids multiple times because at minimum, Chevy Chase kids will lose friends multiple times, i.e. our Girl Scout troop splits after grade 3, then in middle school and again in high school.
Yeah. I hear you. I truly do. So the articulation pattern for Rosemary, North Chevy Chase, and Chevy Chase is very unique in the county. I really do think that is something they need to pay especially attention to when moving these students. They already gone through that goes back to how many times should a student go through split articulation, right? Split articulation by itself disrupt the friendship and continuity. So in their career of K to 12 with MCPS, I do think this is one pain point that they need to pay attention to. That goes with stability. If we don't want to rezone a place that have just gone through boundary changes. The same with split articulation, right? I think that should be taken into consideration. And like I said, the plans are not my plans yet, and not the board's plans yet. But I do believe, I agree with you, that we need to look at split articulation, how many times these children are being moved around and impacted by split articulation. And that will be a question I will ask. I will ask in open conversation.
Right. And going back to the previous question about from Dana Peretz regarding the movement either in 6th or 7th, yes, either have them stay in the middle school they start or move earlier. So just wanted to clarify that that was indeed her point. The next question posed in the chat is from Dwayne. Why is it Potomac in scope? If this is this disruptive, shouldn't all schools be in the scope?
Actually, Potomac is in scope. Potomac is in the Crown boundary study, not in the Woodward boundary study. Actually, one question of the Potomac people ask is, why are we in the Crown study actually when we are closer to Woodward, right? In the preliminary region design, they are put together with Walter Johnson and Woodward. The Potomac schools are like Churchill is a Potomac school, right? But however, in the boundary study, they are put into Crown, which they are further away, and they have to adjust. So you ask a very good question. Yes, but they are included in the boundary study. They are part of the boundary study. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call on Nuala O'Connor. She does not have her hand raised, but she has asked if she could be called on to ask her question. Can we unmute Nuala O'Connor?
Thank you so much, and thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. What a surprise. I'm so grateful. It so happens rarely. Thanks so much. I have a different interface for Zoom, and I did not have a raise hand button. I am a mom of 3, a stepmom of 3, a dog mom of 3, so all good things happen in 3s in my household. And I'm just curious, and thank you so much to President Yang for such a great articulation. What I'm hearing a lot from our questions, and thank you, Lyric, great comment about data, and the data must be accurate and good quality. And as someone who works in tech, that warms my heart. But what I'm not hearing, and I'd love to know more about, and I think could really help us cohere around whatever solution is chosen, is what are the first principles of these plans? What are we trying to solve for? What are the legitimate and important public policy goals and the lofty goals that I'm sure the board is trying to solve for? I see a lot of transparency about maps and about numbers and about all those good things. But what I really want to know, and you did allude to them, President Yang, a little earlier, about the environmental impact. We're talking about putting people on buses for a lot of time and more congestion, more pollution. We're talking about traffic patterns. Lyric made a great point that anybody who drives to work going north-south knows that north-south is hard, and east-west is also not well served by public transportation. We're talking about time in the car for our busy students who are doing multiple after-school activities. My kids are already strapped for time. The idea of adding more bus time for them is just heartbreaking. And then we're talking about communities. I mean, I see these bubbles, and this is not the first time I've been through these boundary redistricting, and they are ridiculous. Let me just say it out loud. Putting a bubble of people in the middle of a whole bunch of communities that go to a different school, what does that do to communities? That should be a high priority. And I think the board should articulate what are the principles that you are trying to adhere to, and then what are the problems you're trying to solve for. And then, of course, most importantly, what is the impact on the families that we serve? What does their daily life look like for a 2 working parent household trying to get 3 kids to different schools that are now further away from their house? The idea that we would put people on buses when we can walk to a school in our neighborhood, unless, again, there is a lofty public policy goal that we can all get behind, which has happened in the history of this country and for good reason. But I don't hear that happening right here. I hear data and I hear numbers and I hear making people's lives more complicated instead of less, just because of math. And that does not resonate with me. And so the last thing I would say is the first and most important principle has to be the children. That's it. What is the well-being of our children? And that means ease of access to education, ease of access to their extracurricular activities, a cohesive and supportive community, less time in the car and more time at school and in activities and with families and eating dinner around the dinner table. These are principles I think we can all get behind. So I want to know, what are the principles and what are the problems we're trying to solve for? And I'm not hearing that from any of the documentation that we've seen yet.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I think the goal is very clear. The goal is we have 2 high schools to populate. We have Woodward and we have Crown. So the goal is very clear. We have 2 high schools that are built, and we need to relieve overcrowdedness in some of our high schools. I think the goal is very clear. However, the policy is written in such a way that 4 factors are being considered. At the very beginning, I share with you that personally, I have some my guiding principle. The board has a guiding principle about communication, about transparency, about data-driven process. Personally, I have guiding principle of continuous boundary, like adjacent boundary switch, and student well-being. And I think my colleagues will all agree that student well-being is very important. So I hear your point. I hear your point.
Thank you, President Yang. We do not have any additional questions in the chat. I see that Juliana Horowitz does have her hand raised. I saw Juliana's hand first.
Yeah, I was just trying to unmute. Sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so I had some questions before. But my question now is, what, so Dr. Taylor is going to send recommendations to the board, and then is the board then, is he sending one recommendation and you either approve it or you don't approve it? Could the board come up with a totally different recommendation? Because everything I'm hearing from you is so encouraging, but I'm not sure I have the same confidence in what MCPS is going to send to you. And one concern that I have is, everything you're saying about data is so important. And in terms of transportation, there are a couple of things. One is that Silver Creek and BCC already meet these 4 criteria, right? The Silver Creek boundary study in 2016 was designed to meet these criteria, and Silver Creek meets them. And so does BCC. And so it's not clear why you would just shuffle those schools just to meet the exact same stats, but just with different students. It's confusing to me. And then also the fact that because there's so many schools, so it's not just Silver Creek and BCC, it's so many schools that have these changes that for 2 years, almost every community is going to have 2 separate buses sent, one to send 11th and 12th graders to one school, and the other to take 9th and 10th graders to a different high school for no good reason. So anyway, so I'm just wondering what the process is in terms of if the board could come up with a totally different option if MCPS doesn't send you something that takes these concerns into account.
Fabulous questions. This is my 3rd year on the board, and we haven't done a boundary study during this 3 years, but I have been involved with the system for a very long time as a staff and as a parent, as a community advocate, right? So I have seen it being done many different ways. Last time when they were doing the boundary study of at the time called Rockville Elementary School number 5, which is Banya Ruston now. And I believe the superintendent made a recommendation at the time, but through the board's engagement with the community, they came up with a different option that adjusted the superintendent's recommendation. And that was the one that finally was adopted by the board, and that's the current boundary of the school. And so there are other times that there are different opinions of boundary study. Last time was the Clarksburg boundary and the area boundary study that the board wasn't unanimous. There were different opinions, but an option passed with the majority of the board. So it has been done differently, looking from a historic lens.
Thank you. Next call on Jessica Rosenberg.
Hi.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Absolutely. I always tell people I don't hide behind email. I don't hide behind. I do answer. But if I have 500 emails in my email box, if you don't hear back from me right away, or if it's a advocacy email with the same message, you know that I have read it. I have read it. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to share perspective and then ask a question. So I live in the town of Chevy Chase. And as we've talked about here, our kids are bused K-2 to Rosemary Hills. So my daughter is in Rosemary Hills right now, and my son will join her there in a year. And it's a fine school, but I did want to share my firsthand experience of busing multiple schools away, just to shed some light on the problems that option 3 might raise. And then I wanted to share a couple implications that option 3 or any busing, like extreme busing situation, would have for us. So regarding busing schools, multiple schools away, right? Meaning my daughter's bus actually passes other elementary schools to get to her elementary schools. I would sum it up, unfortunately, as saying like the busing part of it is really not great. And the reality is so many people in our town have just opted out of public schools entirely. Like they just send their kids to private instead of sending them to Rosemary Hills. And that has had some like frustrating implications, right? So when my daughter has wanted to have play dates, sometimes her friends live 20 minutes away. We can't always do that both times. We have multiple kids. And I picture down the line, that would mean it's harder to do group work when you're assigned group projects. It's harder for friends to get together to do homework. To your point about activity engagement, like we haven't signed her up for any of the enrichments at Rosemary Hills just because getting her home afterward would be too hard because she couldn't just take the regular bus home. So, and then like I haven't volunteered as much as I normally would have or would like to, just because the school is far and it's hard to do working full time. So implications for us personally, we live just under half a mile from BCC. So in option 3, one, we'd have a longer ride to Tacoma Park Middle School than to Silver Creek now, or Westland proposed in the other options. And we go for a 10-minute walk to high school to a bus ride. Like, I don't even know how long that would be with all of the stops, never mind the rush hour traffic that exists despite it being east-west, right? And then some other commenters said, like, it's just so painful to think about in ways like our kids would have to wake up so early just to catch a bus. And like, these are the years when sleep is so crucial to well-being and school success. And for our town, especially when you mentioned a unique situation, something I realized is we'd actually be bused for all but 3rd to 5th grade. And I feel like, why would people even bother living in our town if their kids are just going to be bussed out of it when they could otherwise easily walk? So I think it actually has implications for our whole town's well-being, which I know is not the purview of MCPS. We're focused on standing by the kids and doing right by the kids, but it is something I thought about. So I was really disappointed to see in option 3 just such a disruptive option for us, given the uniqueness of our situation. I really appreciate you're mentioning that and wanting to take it into consideration. So for me personally, at least, I think if I had to prioritize walkability over maintained friendships versus articulation, I'd probably prioritize walkability, but obviously both should be possible and feels ideal. So lastly, the question I have is, we've talked tonight about the accuracy of the data that the analysis company has used. And I'm really curious if their process and the board's consideration makes projections based on expected kind of community reactions, like option 3. I just hear people talking about literally moving to avoid the new assignment, right? Or like opting out of public schools entirely, like private schools. And I've heard like very intense reactions online where people are saying like, why would people even come to Montgomery County at all? Right. And like, just curious how that's being factored in, or if it is being factored in.
The projection of demographic change.
I guess the projection of people's potentially extreme reactions to some of the more extreme options.
Right, right. That's a good question. I don't know right now whether I think it certainly should be considered, but right now we are gathering the feedback, and I'm waiting to see how feedbacks are translating into future options. Right.
Okay.
We stress the importance of hearing feedbacks and then have a data-driven process, right? So I'm waiting to see. And I agree with you. My daughter went to Eastern Middle School to participate in the humanity program for middle school. And I, as heavily involved I was with PTA, I wasn't able to get to the PTA meetings in the evenings.
Yeah.
Driving 495 at 6 o'clock in the evening was undoable. Yeah. I understand.
Thank you.
We have a few more questions in the chat and a couple more raised hands. I just want to note that we are now at 31 minutes before our close, so we're going to try to get through the remaining comments and questions as quickly as we can before our hard stop at 9 o'clock. Next is a comment. Why don't they assign new developments that are just being built to these new schools and not disrupt the students that are currently enrolled and attending current schools? Julie Yang mentioned they need to populate new schools, so populate them with the newly built developments.
Yes, I actually we do get student projection when the MCPS look at projection. They do look at the new development. The county has this is in collaboration with the planning board, understanding how many units are coming online, and they have a formula of if this many units are being built, there's a generation formula to predict how many students it will generate across the K-12, elementary, middle, and high school. I do believe, Nicole, that is being considered, but I can double check and make sure that is included in the design.
The next question comes from Rich. If we strongly disagree with the final decision, will there be a way of protesting that final decision?
I think as citizens, you know, you always have the right to have your voice, like elevate your voice, to find ways to express your opinions. Yes, there are. However, if the final decision is passed by the Board of Education, that will be the decision moving forward, unless the will of the board, the majority of the board member say, you know what, new facts we have reconsidered, new facts have come into light, and if the board redo the decision, and then that's another way of redoing it again. But I think the board's vote is the decision of the boundary study.
We'll next call on Nicole Verdon.
Hi, thank you. In the spirit of not repeating some of the things, I just wanted to add to some great comments I've heard tonight. Thank you for coming, and we really do appreciate it. I just want to emphasize just the children and hope that when we're talking through these plans, that we really take into account walkable zones.
Mhm.
So, another point, for example, I just haven't heard option one, for example, takes children that live at 1 to 2, 3 blocks away from BCC and puts them at Walter Johnson. And it's sort of unclear to me, in addition to the problems that we've discussed with these multiple split articulations between Chevy Chase, North Chevy Chase, and otherwise, why even in that option, it seems like a very random east-west highway is the divide, but it doesn't keep children that are within the walkable zone within a walkable zone. And some of them are being put to, a place that they have to either take the highway to get to when they can walk to a high school that's down the street. So I'm hoping that when we're thinking through these options, we're thinking through the children. I have a lot of the same concerns that have been brought up already, so I'm not going to repeat in terms of taking, just a neighborhood within a neighborhood and taking that little cluster and putting them at a different school than the people that are surrounding them. But I'm just hoping as we think through these options, I'm hoping there'll be different options than the options that are on the table, but we really have to consider walkable zones
So,
and maintaining walkable zones.
Nicole, do me a favor.
Yes.
Have you provided the feedback, right? Giving the neighborhood's name or even
Okay, I
street
can
name
do that.
and put it in the survey and even like send it as a email. Put it in the
Wonderful.
survey for sure, but also send it as an email so that we'll make sure that information is available for
Okay,
consulting firm to take a look at, right? They
I
might
will definitely follow up.
be
Thank you.
adopted or not, I'm not sure, but they need to be aware of this, right?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Next, we'll call on Sarah Stevens.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Yang, for being with us tonight. I, on a personal note, wanted to agree with Ms. Verdun's comments about walkability, having actually taken my son out of private school to put him mid-high school into BCC so that he could walk to school and back. Also, I'm on the Village Council of Section 3 of Chevy Chase. So in addition to, agreeing with you that option 3 is a real crazy idea since most of our kids can walk to BCC. Also, people keep asking me, how is it possible that the other 3 options don't have, any option for our kids to go to Silver Creek? And so you alluded to this earlier, but if I could understand how we would go about trying to introduce an option that hasn't been named in the preliminary options, how we can try to bring that forward.
So, so you're saying that option 1, 2, 4 all give you just one option of going, and if you have reasons for, say, why instead of Westland you want Silver Creek, or instead of Silver Creek you want Westland, if you have a compelling reason, you definitely can share that through the survey or email to the BOE@mcpsmd.org. Absolutely.
Yes, and just to understand, my impression is that at the beginning of this, you said that we all know that the traffic going east-west and west-east is really unbearably bad, whereas north-south is a little bit better, particularly from Section 3 of Chevy Chase. Is that what you
No, it's
I know
not.
some other people have said the opposite.
I think some participant is commenting on the traffic pattern. I actually asked in our last board meeting, I say, I haven't haven't seen any traffic data being shared with us. I would really want to know, because there are a lot of assumptions, or there's a lot of, take our word for it. This is, I'm sure they probably has some data to support it, but I would like to see the data so that I know, right? So yeah, so I don't know. Now, Montgomery County, if you look at the major highways, 355, 270, it is north and south, and then smaller roads are going east and west. But I don't know whether without the traffic light or major roads, is it faster or is it the small roads are faster, or small roads because of the traffic light, it will even make it longer? I don't have enough experience to know. So that's why I'm waiting for the data to tell me.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to David.
Hi,
Hi, David.
my question.
Are you the first deck to ask questions tonight? Trophy.
So my wife and I are relatively new to Montgomery County. We moved here last year, and one of the things that we moved here for was the schools, because they're great and we just love them. We don't have kids yet, but obviously this will impact us in the future. But my question more had to do with, you've talked about walkable zones multiple times. Is the board going to favor options that promote walkable zones and walkable distances to schools? And then I guess as a second question, if we live within a distance, proximity close to a school, are there options to opt to go to that school even if we would be bused normally to another school?
Great question. So David, my family 21 years ago chose picked Montgomery County to live for the exact same reason, schools, right? I have lived 9 years in Hawaii, then we have lived in Portland, Oregon, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then when we landed here, because of job in DC, we had an option of all the jurisdictions around DC, but we picked Montgomery County, and we never look back. We feel that's the right decision for our family, and I hope that you will feel the same way, that this is the right decision for your family, and that's what I'm working for. I'm committed to every single day. I can't speak for the board if the walkability is something that will be heavily favored. For me, I'm looking at that. I really feel we have a very congested transportation pattern, especially certain parts of the town. So I will look at that closely. In terms of distance, if a student pick to go to a different school, you have to go through a process called COSA, that you ask to go to enroll in a school that is not assigned by the school district. And in order to do that, you must have really difficult situations. That is uncommon. Now, distance and transportation is not typically considered an unusual hardship for families, especially when school transportation is provided for the family. So the answer will be no. You will need to attend the school that you are assigned to, unless you have other hardship that can allow you to attend a different school. That makes sense for you to attend another school.
Great.
The next comment is a comment. This is from Lyric Winnick. There was traffic data shared early on in the Silver Creek process, unlike here. East-west was the longest and most difficult at that time, just FYI. There are very few east-west crossing points. So
Okay.
just wanted to relay that comment.
So Lyric, I haven't seen 2016, I haven't seen that report. If you still have that report, can you email it to me? Or I can also ask the system to see if they still have that 2016 Silver Creek transportation study.
And we can certainly connect you with Lyric Winnick offline as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Our next question is about planning board projections. We have seen that the planning board's projections on population growth are often inaccurate and sometimes extremely so. For example, Walter Johnson was not projected to be as over-enrolled as it is, which is 700 kids. Can the school board press the planning department on the accuracy of these numbers as they consider the next iteration of proposals? And that is from Brooke Thomas.
So I understand this is, I can't pretend that I know how to do population projection. But I certainly can appreciate the complexity of the work. Sometimes the neighborhood turnaround rate or the growth rate and the economic situations impact how many people live in a neighborhood. If I want to take a guess, because of how expensive housing is in Montgomery County, we're seeing increasing number of students in apartment buildings. If our traditional wisdom is that apartment buildings don't have young kids, maybe that one does not hold universally anymore in our county. So I do have meeting scheduled with the planning board, and I do believe our closer collaboration will be very helpful in terms of making projections in student enrollment. MCPS also have our own staff do this projection too, and it also will be helpful for us to look at building utilization, how we calculate building utilization formula, and in general, just plan better to know what's coming up online, so that we can be pragmatic in solving some small area adjustments.
All right, that was the final question in the chat. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Morsberger.
No, thank you, Shana. President Yang, we have a few minutes left, and there was mention at the top of the conversation that if there was time, you might take a few minutes to address other issues as they relate, especially to the upcoming 2025-26 school year. So if you'd like to take advantage of a couple of minutes remaining, I'm sure this audience would be eager to hear what's on your mind over the next 3 months, 12 months, and so forth.
Yeah. So I really do appreciate this time to be with you face to face, and I also appreciate the town put up this format. I know Zoom is not easy, and I really thank you, Ms. Morsberger, for moderating this evening. The past few months, the school district have and the board have a lot of open conversation on some important issues that impact our students. One is being cell phone use in our schools. And I actually did a focus group in Silver Creek Middle School to hear about the students' feedback, as they are one of the pilot schools that do this phone away all day pilot. And so I'm very happy to report that we are going forward, we will reduce and actually enforce the regulation that phones should be put away during instructional time. So I feel that's very positive. And also we have open conversations on grading and reporting. We really would like to see that have true picture of where our students are, and that's the way we can provide support and intervention, and that's meaningful for the students. And then the student code of conduct, I think it's important. I think the safest school building is one that is fully staffed, and then everyone is being responsible member of the community. And also there should be many other things, but these are the important open conversation. We're trying to address key issue, important issues in the school district. And I ask for your partnership. So we just finished the year. Graduation season is always my favorite time of the year. And I was able to attend several high school graduation, and I was able to attend some 5th grade promotion ceremony or middle school instrumental music end of the year performance. And I just feel these tremendous energy in our buildings. Good things are happening. There are a lot of things we need to improve. And I like one of the things Dr. Taylor said, that we should be the best at getting better. So that is a great mentality. And I would say that let's all have moving goalposts. So move all our students, right, towards success, towards improvement. So thank you for having me tonight. And I am, you know how to find me. My information is on the board page, MCPS Board of Education, and the email is right under my name and picture. So you can always find me, and I really appreciate your input and your support and your partnership. That is one thing I have to say. The partnership of families, that you are the foundation for your children. You are the pillars for your children, and you are the first teacher for your children, and your support and your partnership is how we thank you for letting us to have your children for the 6 or 7 hours of a day, and then we hope to together to shape them into good adults in the future. So thank you.
Thank you for that, President Yang. I think we have to say thank you for those heartfelt comments, and thank you for the engagement in the course of the evening. And thank you to Chevy Chase area residents for their great engagement on the boundary and other MCPS issues. It is very much appreciated that President Yang has given her time and commitment to keeping our communities informed about this, what we would all acknowledge as a critically important process. And the good questions coming in tonight make that clear how interested our residents are. And we look for updates as the process evolves and advances. Folks who are with us tonight, please remember that the deadline to respond to the survey on the first round of options is July 15th. There's a link in the to the Boundary Study website that you can click through, and you can find the survey, wealth of information accessible through that link. And with that, on behalf of the several Chevy Chase area municipalities co-hosting tonight's event, many thanks. Now I see one final hand being raised. If we unmute Carol Brand. Carol, let's see if we can get you unmuted real quick, appreciating there's a few minutes left, but this will be the last. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hi, Julie. Hi, everybody. I'm Carol Brand. I'm a former cluster coordinator for the BCC cluster and have been involved in this for 30 years, I think, by now. Julie, I just wanted to ask you a question. So we've heard lots of concerns tonight, lots of good questions, and I know that you made notes and you said that you would find out answers to the questions. My question is, will the board, upon listening to what people had to say tonight, ask MCPS to come up with yet another alternative? Because the ones that we have seen are not really fitting our community at all. So that's my question for tonight. Thank you, Julie, for being here.
Yeah, so the next set of options that come out in September, you should see adjustments. And I would like to hear from all of you because you probably examine it way closer, right? You look at the streets, all the impact, whether it has adjusted. I have noted down your questions too. So the next set of the options should have incorporated some community, I don't know whether all, but some community feedbacks. And I really note down people's questions about distance, walkability, after school activity, transportation data, and there are also questions about new development and their data about what year data is being used. So these are all very great questions. And I think I will type up the notes and send it. And I encourage everyone to do the same, to continue to fill out that survey. The deadline is July 15th.
Then the next set of options, or revised set of options, folks should be on the lookout for those around September, you'd say. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. No, very good question. Thank you, Carol. All right, everybody. Thank you. This has been informative and very much appreciate it. More to come, I'm sure. And thank you, President Yang. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.